The drone strike that killed Iranian General Qasem Soleimani in January 2020 sent shockwaves through the Middle East. Soleimani, the head of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps' Quds Force, was a towering figure in Iranian politics and a key architect of Iran's regional influence. His assassination, ordered by then-President Donald Trump, marked a dangerous escalation in the long-standing shadow war between the United States and Iran. The strike, which took place near Baghdad International Airport, was met with outrage in Iran and vows of revenge. The Iranian government promised a harsh retaliation, and the region braced for a wider conflict. The assassination also raised serious questions about the future of US-Iran relations and the stability of the Middle East. In the aftermath of Soleimani's death, Iran launched ballistic missiles at US military bases in Iraq, causing significant damage but no casualties. The attack was a symbolic act of retaliation, but it also demonstrated Iran's willingness to use military force against the United States. The assassination of Soleimani marked a turning point in the US-Iran conflict, pushing the two countries closer to the brink of war. It also had a profound impact on Iran's internal security apparatus, as the government sought to identify and neutralize perceived threats from within. As Iran grappled with the aftermath of Soleimani's assassination, its intelligence agencies launched a sweeping crackdown on suspected spies and dissidents. Among those arrested was Mahmoud Mousavi Majd, a seemingly unremarkable translator. Beneath Majid's unassuming exterior lay a secret life of espionage. Majd's work gave him access to sensitive information, and Iranian authorities alleged he spied for foreign intelligence agencies. They claimed he was recruited by the CIA and Mossad. He was accused of providing classified information about Iran's military and nuclear program. The Iranian government claimed Majd played a role in Soleimani's assassination. His case highlighted the pervasive threat of espionage and the vulnerability of secure institutions. The Iranian government portrayed Majid's alleged espionage as part of a wider conspiracy to undermine the Islamic Republic. They accused the United States, Israel, and other Western countries of waging a covert war against Iran, using spies, sabotage, and economic sanctions to weaken the regime. Majid's arrest was presented as evidence of this ongoing campaign, and the Iranian government vowed to bring him and his alleged handlers to justice. The case was used to fuel anti-Western sentiment in Iran and to rally support for the government's hardline policies. The Iranian government's accusations against Majd and his alleged foreign handlers were part of a long-standing pattern of blaming external enemies for the country's internal problems. By portraying Majd as a traitor who had betrayed his country for foreign powers, the Iranian government sought to deflect attention from its own failings and to justify its repressive measures. However, the case also highlighted the very real threat of espionage in the Middle East, a region rife with political intrigue, rivalries, and covert operations. The shadow war between Iran and its adversaries, particularly the United States and Israel, had been escalating for years, and Majid's alleged espionage was just one manifestation of this broader conflict. Mahmoud Mousavi Majd's trial took place behind closed doors in an Iranian revolutionary court, a system known for its secrecy and lack of transparency. The Iranian government tightly controlled the flow of information about the case, and independent observers were denied access to the proceedings. Majd was denied access to a lawyer of his choosing and was instead represented by a court-appointed attorney. The Iranian government presented what it claimed was evidence of Majd's guilt, including alleged confessions, intercepted communications, and testimony from intelligence officials. However, the veracity of this evidence could not be independently verified. Human rights groups and international organizations expressed serious concerns about the fairness of Majd's trial. They criticized the lack of transparency, the use of secret evidence, and the denial of due process. Amnesty International called the trial a sham and accused the Iranian government of using Majd as a scapegoat to deflect attention from its own failings. The trial of Mahmoud Mousavi Majd highlighted the shortcomings of the Iranian judicial system, particularly in cases involving national security. The lack of transparency, due process, and fair trial guarantees raised serious doubts about the validity of the charges against Majd and the fairness of the proceedings. Section 5. The Price of Betrayal. After a brief and secretive trial, Mahmoud Mousavi Majd was found guilty of espionage and sentenced to death. The Iranian judiciary announced the verdict, claiming that Majd had confessed to his crimes and that the evidence against him was irrefutable. The court accused Majd of betraying his country and collaborating with enemy intelligence agencies to harm Iran's national security. The death sentence against Majd was widely condemned by human rights organizations and Western governments. Amnesty International called the sentence a grotesque injustice and urged the Iranian government to overturn it. The United States, Israel, and several European countries also condemned the verdict and called for Majd's release. The Iranian government, however, remained defiant, insisting that Majd had received a fair trial and that the death sentence was justified. Iranian officials accused Western governments of hypocrisy, arguing that they were quick to condemn Iran's human rights record while ignoring their own abuses. The death sentence against Majd highlighted the stark differences between Iran and the West on issues of human rights and the rule of law. It also underscored the high stakes involved in the shadow war between Iran and its adversaries, as both sides resorted to increasingly drastic measures to protect their interests. Section 6. A swift and controversial end. In July 2020, Mahmoud Mousavi Majd was executed by Iranian authorities. The execution was carried out swiftly and secretly. The Iranian judiciary confirmed the execution. It was met with widespread condemnation from human rights organizations and Western governments. Amnesty International called it a callous act of revenge. The UN expressed deep concern, calling it a violation of Iran's obligations. The US, Israel, and European countries condemned the execution. The execution strained relations between Iran and the West. Section 7. Espionage in the shadows. The case of Mahmoud Mousavi Majd brought to light the shadowy world of espionage in the Middle East, where intelligence agencies operate with little oversight or accountability. The region has long been a battleground for competing powers, and intelligence gathering has played a crucial role in shaping the political landscape. Iran, in particular, has been the target of intense espionage efforts by the United States, Israel, and other Western countries. These countries are eager to gather information about Iran's nuclear program, its military capabilities, and its regional activities. Iran, for its part, has been accused of conducting its own espionage operations against its adversaries, seeking to steal secrets and sow discord. The shadow war between Iran and its enemies has escalated in recent years, with both sides resorting to increasingly aggressive tactics. Cyber attacks, assassinations, and sabotage have become commonplace, as have accusations of espionage and meddling in domestic affairs. The case of Mahmoud Mousavi Majd was just one example of the high stakes involved in this clandestine conflict, where lives are often at risk and the truth can be difficult to discern. Section 8. Retribution and its discontent. The execution of Mahmoud Mousavi Majd was widely seen as an act of retribution by the Iranian government, a way to avenge the assassination of Qasem Soleimani and to send a message of deterrence to its enemies. By portraying Majd as a traitor who had betrayed his country, the Iranian government sought to justify its actions and to rally support for its hardline policies. However, the execution also sparked discontent within Iran, where some questioned the fairness of Majd's trial and the government's use of the death penalty. Critics accused the government of using Majd as a scapegoat to deflect attention from its own failings and to silence dissent. The execution also fueled anti-government sentiment among those who saw it as part of a wider pattern of repression and human rights abuses. The Iranian government's crackdown on dissent, its suppression of free speech, and its arbitrary detentions have alienated many Iranians, who are increasingly frustrated with the country's economic woes and lack of political freedoms. Section 9. A region on edge. The execution of Mahmoud Mousavi Majd took place against a backdrop of heightened tensions in the Middle East. The region is grappling with multiple crises, including the ongoing wars in Syria and Yemen, the rise of extremist groups like ISIS, and the collapse of the Iran nuclear deal. The assassination of Qasem Soleimani had further destabilized the region, pushing the United States and Iran closer to the brink of war. The subsequent escalation of tensions, including Iran's missile attacks on US bases in Iraq and the downing of a Ukrainian passenger plane by Iranian forces, had raised fears of a wider conflict. The execution of Mahmoud Mousavi Majd was a stark reminder of the fragility of peace in the Middle East and the high stakes involved in the shadow war being waged between Iran and its adversaries. It also highlighted the human cost of this conflict, as ordinary people are often caught in the crossfire of geopolitical rivalries.